Dactyl Manuform keyboard. This is the 5x6 model. This is an open source project that has files available for free on GitHub and Thingiverse. If you are going on GitHub, I think they have some of the 3D models available, but they also have a script that allows you to generate your own case files. I am not smart enough to get that to work yet, so I've been using the case files from that have already been generated by some other users, which I think the case files are in Thingiverse and they're available in the GitHub repo. So the Dactyl Manuform is a kind of a mashup of two different keyboards. One of them is called the Dactyl, which is similar to just this section with almost like a little Ergodox thumb cluster that's flat but a little bit off to the side. And the Dactyl Manuform uses the thumb cluster from a different keyboard project called the Manuform. So it's a little bit nicer obviously it's ergonomic stuff, so everybody's gonna have their own hand about it, but to me this is one of the most comfortable boards that I've used, so I've been building quite a few of them. The case is 3D printed, and as long as you have a printer with, I don't even know what size is this. You've got, I don't know, it looks like maybe 18 to 20 centimeter bed. You should be able to print this just fine. You will have to use a lot of supports. This one I've already cleared the supports off of, but you obviously, since it's printed like this going up, you're going to need to support these kind of little bridgey parts here. The case files that are available on the repo and on Thingiverse, they have these little nubs. I don't know. This is my first stream, so bear with me if things are looking insane. Let's see. So I'm gonna try to bring this up. This is a USB microscope. Let's see. So we have, let's see. So you can kind of see, I don't know, maybe you can't see. There's these little nubs that are part of the design, these things right here. And maybe that's not the best. So there's these little nubs there. I think the idea is that they're supposed to hold the wires or hold the diodes or something, but I didn't find them terribly useful, so I've just been cutting them off. It'd probably be better to generate a case file that just doesn't have them, but I am just using these little flush cutters to cut them off. So I think that's the only thing that still maybe had not been done to this case, so I'm just going to take the rest of these off. So I've been using PLA as the material for these cases. You can do that, it works just fine, and it's a little easier to print than ABS or whatever else you might want to use. Any of those would work fine, but the PLA is a lot easier to work with in my experience. So I'm just going to take the rest of these off. One of the things that I've already done to this case, and maybe I should have just started with one that had nothing done to it, but I have already put in these little, I think it's called I forget, some kind of nut, knurled nut or something like that. But these little brass inserts, basically, that you heat up with the soldering iron and stick into these spots on the bottom of the case. And then that's going to allow us to put a little screw in there to put the bottom of the case on later. So on the case, obviously we've got holes for the switches. That's all our square holes right here. These holes, I think, are designed for standard MX, like cherry style MX switches. And even though they should all be the same, they're not. So when you put the Kailh switches in here, they don't quite lock in. So we usually, I'll use a hot glue gun, just put a little dab on either side of the switch, and that will hold it in nicely. Since this is a hand wired build, if you're changing out the keycaps on this, you don't want to pull the entire switch out when you're pulling the keycap off, so you need some way of kind of locking the switches in here. And since on these hand wired builds, it would be probably just as easy to build a new board rather than change the switches out on it. It's not really a big deal to have them locked in with the glue. Okay, so I think I got all of the little extraneous nubbins off of this thing. I'm gonna responsibly put these in the garbage can. So with this, the first thing we're gonna do is, well, I'll show you around the case a little bit more. So additionally on this case, there is a little slot right here, and that's where our Pro Micro is gonna go. Let me see if I have one laying around here. So yeah, so this is the Pro Micro. This is the microcontroller that we're going to use for the keyboard. This is kind of like the brain of the keyboard. This is going to have our firmware on it, and basically all of the switches are going into this before they go to the computer, so they can be translated into actual key presses that the computer is going to recognize. So you know, you can see roughly this little shape of this thing. This is going to go into here. It's going to just slide right in there. The USB port on the Pro Micro is going to be on this side so that it's closer to this hole, which is where we're going to put a little extender USB cable to go from micro USB to a form of USB that is actually good, like maybe USB-C or just something more hardy a little bit, and so we're not plugging in and out of the microcontroller itself, kind of wearing it out. So this other hole here, this is where we're going to put a that's going to be a spot for the RJ9 jack, which is like a not just a telephone jack, but actually it is it's like a telephone headset jack that only has 4 pins. If you try to use regular phone jack or the regular phone cord, a lot of times they're a little bit wider and they will not work with this. So it's RJ9, the 4-pin variety. So so the switches that we're going to put in here, these are not used these before. Well, there's a lot of things I haven't done before, but I haven't used these before. These are I think a Novel Keys special with Kailh. So these are Kailh Pro Heavies, and this is the Plum variety. Maybe this will be a fine time for a microscope shot. So these are backwards life. Okay, so these are, they feel like nice switches so far. I haven't typed a thing on them, but they feel nice so far. It's a pretty obviously Pro Heavy switch. It's gonna be pretty heavy, and it is a tactile switch, so you can feel there is a little bump when you're pressing that. So who knows, maybe it'll work. Feels nice so far. So we're gonna take these switches and just start popping them into the case here. So we're gonna take this, just start at the top. So I'm gonna see if these actually fit. A lot of times they don't, and you have to actually end up turning them sideways to get them to fit at all. And we're gonna do the hot gluing a little bit later. So this is actually, if you can see that, this is actually in sideways, so you can see like that. This, compared to how we would do it on a normal keyboard build, where this part would be closest to you. So we'll just keep going with this. Pop the rest of these in. Yeah, looks good. Okay. And, as we're doing this, the next step that we're going to be doing is actually wiring these together into the switch matrix. So that's actually kind of the most time-consuming part of doing this, is doing that wiring of the matrix, because on a normal keyboard you've got you have a flat surface that you're working with, which makes it a lot easier to just lay down a wire somewhere and then just solder all the switches onto it, maybe for the columns, for example. This type of build where you have a curved surface, is much more difficult to do that soldering on, because the wires themselves have to go along that curve. It's also the reason that there isn't really a mass manufactured version of this keyboard. I mean, obviously you've got stuff like the Kinesis Advantage and stuff like that, where it does have a curved typing surface, but those are pretty fancy, and I don't think super easy to come by. And it's more fun to build it yourself anyway. So just keep going. These colors look cool together. I don't know if it comes across. This yellow is actually a little bit darker of a yellow than it's showing up as on the camera. So it looks cool with these purple switches. Almost done. I'm gonna do the thumb cluster here. These are the two top thumb buttons. So these are kind of the ones that you'll use the most. So usually I'll take these two and map them to maybe like space bar for this one and shift for this one. And then on the other side, on the right hand side, it would be, I usually do space bar and then enter. So you have access to those like super easily, as well as these, which are going to be probably our modifier keys. It's a little difficult to get used to doing that. When you are touch typing most of the time, but it is possible, and your hands aren't going to die. So we've got all the switches in here onto this side. So this is the left side of the keyboard. There's a right half as well that we'll be doing too. So if we're looking at the bottom of this, oh boy, it's very curved. So we need to, when we're wiring up the matrix of the switches, what we need to do is, in this case, we're going to be, the columns are going to be going this way, like a column does. And we're going to be connecting one pin of each column of switches together, okay? And at the top of each of those columns, that's then going to be it's going to be connected to a data pin on the microcontroller. So the signal is going to get sent down, 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 and it's basically just checking these over and over and over again, just super, super fast. And basically what we're doing with the matrix of switches is it's wired like a grid, but in order to keep it from getting any false presses or having kind of things loop back around and register a key press that wasn't actually made, we have the columns going this way, which is just a wire that connects them. Then we have rows going this way that are actually going to have a diode right after the pin connected to a rail that goes all the way across. That, and those diodes are basically, it allows the electricity to only flow in one direction so that we don't get this problem where we're connecting switches and confusing the microcontroller and then getting key presses that we didn't want. So we're going to go through all of that right now. I'm going to put these switches away. And so, you can do this a lot of different ways. There is, let me find this thing here. So one of the ways that I've seen people do it is they will use this copper foil tape. I haven't even decided yet. I may do that for this one, just to give it a try. I'm not sure if that's gonna work, but it's worth a try, as long as there's no coating on the top of this. So basically, we would be using this thin little adhesive copper tape to create that, basically that wire, that connection that's going down the columns. And we would just pop the pin through the tape and then put a little bit of solder to actually connect it on there. We'll think about that. I don't know. We'll keep that one out here. The other way, there's several other ways, but one of the other ways is to use just bare copper wire. This wire is a little bit on the thicker side. You do not need it to be this thick. I just like to use this because for me it's a little bit easier to work with because it retains its shape. But that is totally up to you. A lot of people use, I think it's magnet wire, which is a lot thinner than this, and basically it's just easy to work with. You just wrap it around and keep going. If you're using bare wire, though, you will have to make sure, and that would include this because it is kind of bare. You do have to make sure that you're either then covering it up with something so that the rows are not going to accidentally come in contact with it, or you can use wire that has the coating already. So again, I have a tendency to use wire that's way thicker than necessary, but this is a wire that I've been using. This has a silicone jacket to it, and if you're using this, you will have to do something where you're making like little cuts in the jacketing so that you can slide it down the wire and create basically little gaps where the copper is exposed, and then you can solder that onto your switches. So I think actually I'd like to try doing this a way that I don't usually do it, which is to try using this copper tape. What I'm thinking is we can put this tape down the columns, and then what we'll do is take something like this Kapton tape, which looks similar, but it's not. So this is conductive, and this is very specifically not conductive. So this is, we would take this and maybe lay it down on top of the copper tape, and that would keep the rows from coming into contact with it when we don't want them to. Okay, so I don't know, let's give this a try. If it doesn't work, we can always do our regular wiring thing. If this does work, I feel like it might actually be a lot easier than doing it the other way, but we will see. So it's really, really, really thin, which is okay. As long as it doesn't get broken, it will still conduct the electricity. So let's see. I don't know. Let's just try this. Try this column right here. So the only kind of annoying thing about having to turn all these switches sideways like that is that when you're wiring the columns, you see how close the pins are together. I'll try to show this here. You know, if we're looking at this, are we looking at this? You can kind of see, you can't see that. That's okay. I don't know. Backwards, forwards. So the two pins that are coming out of the switch are really close together. And since we've aligned it like this, they're extra close together. So we're kind of gonna have to run the tape, like shift it over a little bit to the side and just getting poked through by these pins. So let's see if we can do this. I'm gonna bring this down and see if that is gonna work okay. Yeah, that looks all right. So I just take a piece of this, cut it off here. Probably just do that with scissors if you want. And let's just see if this works. So I'm going to take this backing, try to take this backing off. I need more horrible fingernails, I think, for this. Okay, so I'm going to peel that off, and it'll stick to itself and be ruined immediately. And let's see, I'm going to poke that through. I can tell I'm already might be coming very close to touching these other pins already, but hey, that's like a million times faster than using the wire. So if this works, that would be wonderful. Just try to get it like that. So looks like, yeah, that's probably okay. We can always push that out of the way a little bit, maybe, just to get it away from the other pin. And then we'll also be covering it with some tape, so that should keep it safe too. But I'm gonna push this away. That's very close to that second pin. Basically, we're trying to not have any false connections. Like, we don't want it to register a key press when we didn't actually press the key. So this is thin, very thin. It's a lot thinner than I thought, actually, but that's okay. That makes it very easy to work with. So I don't know, I actually like that a lot. So compared to doing the wire, which is a whole thing where you're wrapping it and, you know, making sure it hits the right ones, and oh no, there's too much, oh no, there's not enough. So this, I like that, actually. So I'm just going to keep going with that, I guess. So let's keep that going. So I'm gonna cut another piece. Okay, we'll take the backing off. I don't know how much you can talk about how tape is used, but we're gonna find out together. Okay, so this is, let's see, I'm gonna pop that on the first one. That's touching, but we'll fix that. Okay, through there, and through there. Okay, maybe we'll throw the tape down, and then, yeah, like those two are touching, but we'll fix that. I'm gonna throw the rest of the tape down on this this one, and then we'll go and clean it up. So this one will be a little longer. You know what? I'm going to check my, what I always have to do is check my little papers. Where, here, let me see if I can show this. So many cameras. Oh no, I ruined it. Okay. There we go. Okay. So these are so you don't have to actually remember anything ever. So this is a diagram that is available online. I can't, unfortunately, I can't remember the name of the guy who did this, but bless his heart, these are wonderful. I'll try to put a link to it. This helped me out a lot. But this shows the colored lines that you see there represent the columns that we were talking about in the switch matrix, and the horizontal-ish lines with the little these little things on them, those are, here, let me see if I can just set this down. Those are the rows. So the most important part of this little diagram for me is this shows how the thumb cluster is wired. So, you know, all of this is pretty self-explanatory. It's just kind of like a grid. But the column wires, this one goes down here and then over here, and then it's connected to this switch here. This one goes down and then over and crossing, and then over to this one here. This pink one goes down and over to that one, and I missed this one that looks invisible on this camera. So this blue one, dark blue one, goes down and over to this switch right here. So when we're wiring this up, these two, let's see, nope, yep, nope, okay. So these two are fine, but I think the next one is gonna have to go down and over to one of these. So I'm gonna try to get that right. Also, the one we were looking at is for the right half of this keyboard, and we are actually doing the left half right now. So this one, let's see. So that would be this one over here. So it's gonna be like that. So what we are gonna do now is we're gonna follow that diagram, and we're gonna have our column come down and then over to the correct switch. So I'm gonna just look at that diagram real quick. We'll get about the right length of this stuff. I'm gonna go over, and it looks like it is going to this one right here. So I'll give it a little bit of extra just in case to make the corners. We'll cut that off, and then maybe we won't peel all the backing off of that just yet. I'll just do a little bit at a time, and we're gonna take, again, I need to grow these fingernails out a little bit. So I'm gonna take this, start peeling it off. We will start at the top here. So I'm gonna poke that through our top switch. Again, cleaning this up later. Poke it through the second one, third one. Keep peeling this backing back. We're gonna go, oops, it's very bendable, so I'm trying not to break it. It's super thin. So then this one, let's try to get that all the way on there. So that one, and then we're actually gonna come over. So let's see if this can bend a little bit. Over. I'll just take the rest of this off here. So this is going to come over here, over here, over here, and then we're going to go to one of these pins on this last switch in the corner. Here we go. Well, we'll hit both pins by accident, and then we'll clean it up. So that's not bad. That's really not bad at all. I don't mind that at all. That's actually much faster than doing it with the wire. And as long as the tape is going to go on there okay to kind of shield this from the other wiring in here, then I think we're going to be in good shape. I'm going to cut that little piece off there. Okay. Tape is sticky. Okay. Okay, so there's that one. So that makes one of the rows. So this is a row, this is a row, and the rows don't always have to have the same number of switches in them. So we're gonna go down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 6. Okay, so that's one row technically right there. So let's go ahead and do this next one here. This one, let's look at where that is supposed to go. So that one is supposed to go to this switch right here. So I suppose that's where it gets tricky using the tape, because with the wires you can have them running like right next to each other, but the tape is a little bigger. So we'll see how we're gonna deal with that. Okay, so I'm going to start, let's see how much we need here. Down, over to this one, okay. Give it a little extra there. Okay, so we'll cut that off. And peel that back a little bit. We'll start putting this on. Poke that. Poke, poke, poke. Poke, 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 poke. These are pokey. You can poke them right under your fingernails if you want to. It's a free feature. Ow. Okay. So we'll try. I'm going to try to just run this next to the other one, and this will probably be another thing that has to be cleaned up later. Let's see. Oh boy, it's very sticky. Let's see. Okay. So this is going here. We'll try to make it go over. And then let's hit. Yuck, that's a little bit of a mess, but oh well. So we're gonna poke that through that one right there. And we're ready to start typing. No, okay, just kidding. Alright, so that looks, it looks like shit, but it's not actually bad, and it's not touching any other line. Okay, that's probably gonna work just fine. Kind of push this down a little bit. Okay. Okay, so then we're gonna do this next one, which is supposed to go to this next column is gonna end with this switch right here, right there. Okay. So let's cut another piece of copper friend. Go down here. Oh, yes, we actually also have to hit one of these. So actually, it's got to go down here to this one, which is part of the thumb cluster, and then to this one here. So let's make sure we got enough stuff. Okay, I'll cut this. If you're going to do this multiple times, it helps to just have a little sheet where you write down what the measurements are. So you could just measure how long is this one, this one, this one, this one, this one, this one, and then you'd be able to just cut them to the right lengths every time. So we're not quite there yet. So let's open this up with our big dumb fingers. Okay, let's start taking that off. Put that through there. Go through there. There. I know my fingers are basically just in the way the entire time, but too bad. Okay, so this one's going there. You can kind of, the switches are not in there too good yet, so you can kind of end up pushing that a little bit. Peel this off some more. Come down here. Poke it through this one. And then run over to, let's go here. I've got some extra little posts sticking out of these bad boys because these are the PCB mount versions of the switches, which just means that they have these little extra plastic posts there. If for stuff where you're not using maybe a switch plate or something, that can be nice because it gives it a little bit of extra stability. Instead of all that's holding it on to the PCB being the solder, you've got at least one more little thing that's keeping it together. So yeah, I can already tell we're gonna need to glue these in before we go any further, or else they're just gonna keep falling out. And I think even if we soldered them in, it would just end up ripping out the tape there. Yeah, like this one's not staying in at all. So we're gonna do some gluing soon. So let's do our last column here, and then we'll do some gluing. Let me get the glue gun popping first here. This and the soldering iron are the two implements most likely to burn down your house besides your 3D printer. So be careful. Okay, let's plug this in. Plug it in. SureBonder. Okay, so that's going. Heat that up while we do our last column here. This switch just refuses to stay in, so oh well. I'm gonna cut one more piece of this, and obviously the last switches that are still need to be connected are down this way and then here. So let's see, down over now. Okay, that should be enough. Cut that off. Pull that backing. Someday we'll have this. Okay. All right. So there, we'll start peeling that off. Okay. Yeah, I'll have to scoot all that out of the way. We'll have to see. Sometimes doing things a different way is faster at one step and then slower during all the other steps. So we will find out if this copper tape thing is cool or if it is dumb. There's no in between. Okay, so we'll come over here and there we go. Okay. Poke that through there and get rid of the extra stuff. Okay. Okay. So, let's see if we can So that's pretty quick, actually. That seems like it took a long time, but that's actually a lot faster than doing the wires for the columns, which anytime you can save off of this process is great because it's a little bit of a time-consuming thing. So let's see if our glue is ready yet. And what you can do if you want is you can do this gluing step before you lay down any of the columns. It's probably a little more secure, but in my experience, it's perfectly fine to just stick a little bit of glue on the sides of the switch, just from the bottom, and that seems to hold it in pretty well. And this is that high heat type of glue gun, which to me is the only kind. It's way stronger of a bond, and it seems to last pretty well. So this part can be a little bit messy with the spider webs from the glue gun, but we'll do our best. You can also go like corner and corner, works well too. What we don't want to do is get any of the glue into these, well, really it's a slot for the like the LEDs, SMD LEDs, I think. But on some of the switches, there's mechanical parts that are accessible through that area. Like I think on the thick clicks or stuff like that. Like I know on the box navies and I think the box jades, you don't want to get any glue in there because it will cause the switch not to function anymore. So we're going to try to just avoid that. Okay. Just kind of pushing it right up to those edges, up to the cracks, so that it's actually squirting a little bit of glue into the little cracks here. We don't want these to go anywhere and mess up our wiring. There and there. I don't know if this is all the way heated up yet. That's okay. There. You could, before you do your build, if you happen to have switches that are PCB mount with those extra plastic nubs on them, you can cut those off. You can just use the flush cutters to chop those off. It's not gonna hurt anything, and probably it would be a little bit easier. Usually I'm not using those types of switches for these builds, but that's what I had here. So but it might be nicer if they were not in our way. There we go. You're not going anywhere. Try not to leave too much of a spider web mess. Every time I see that big like hot glue spider web mess, it reminds me of the genius who noticed that as a feature of hot glue guns and then decided they were going to make a Halloween product that took advantage of that phenomenon and basically added like a fan onto it to create a spider web gun that shoots spider webs all over your house, which is very cool. I think that person will be remembered fondly by history. This one, this was the switch that was falling out, so I'm going to hold this one from the other side until the glue kind of sets up. The rest of these look like they're in a good position already, so I don't really need to hold onto them while the glue sets. And put that there. Put that there. We'll just do these now too. I always invariably miss one, and then I have to heat up the glue gun again, so do our best. Put this there, put this there, there. Okay, I think we got those. I'm still holding that one. I'm not sure how long it's gonna quite take. That one, that one. We really don't want these thumb ones to move at all because we'll be hammering on those quite a bit when we're using this board. Go here and here. It doesn't really matter if the hot glue gets on the copper tape or your wiring or whatever, because really all that means is that that part of the copper is insulated now. Yay, good job. I meant to do that. Okay. I think that's it. And this one I think is okay now. Good. Yes. Okay. Very good. Put that away. We'll unplug it. We'll turn it off. We'll remember. We won't burn down the building at all. Okay. So we've got that set up. I'm just going to go through. Probably I should use something that's a little more blunt maybe to do this, but I want to just push the tape away from anything it's not supposed to be touching. So like here they're probably touching everywhere. So just gonna go through this and kind of adjust that. I can't tell if we are in focus or not. That looks okay. Okay, so let's just go through this. That one's good now. That one's okay. Maybe this is not a great thing for this. That's not either. Let's see. I'll try this one again. Okay. Just kind of moving it away from the pins it's not supposed to touch, without ripping it, because it is really, really, really delicate, it seems like. That's okay. It can be really close to the other pins, actually, but we just don't want to. Once the solder starts going around, sometimes things get accidentally connected that aren't supposed to be. It's a whole big frenzy. Move that. Oops. I don't want to puncture through the tape, though. Okay, we'll move that. Hey, oh, okay. I'm going to leave that one alone. That one's about to break. This will move over. This one will move. You know what? If I can just get one side of this, I bet that's better. Okay. There we go. Okay. This one moving over. Moving over. Oh, give me just a second. Okay. There we go. Move this, move this, move this, move that. Let's see. Yeah, really, I want just like a semi-sharp plastic thing. I think I just need to grow my nails out like a wizard. That might be the real answer. not believe it, but this is still less fussy than doing the wire. I don't know how that's possible, but it is. Okay, that one's okay, that one's okay, this one is stupid. That just doesn't have to go that far, okay. Okay. This one, actually, this one can get cut off right there. Okay, so that's pretty good. This one is goofy. Okay. Moving these out of the way. Go, 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 go. Get out of my house. Okay. That's good, 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 good. Okay, I think everyone is safe now. Ow, except my finger. These are real sharp. All right, so I think for today, the last thing we're gonna have time to do is we're going to solder these up. So let me show you this exciting soldering iron camera. Let's see. Da 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 da. Okay. I wonder. This probably won't work. No, probably not. Okay, that's fine. No big deal. Okay. All right. So we're gonna try to just go through pretty quick here and solder these together. Okay. So I'm just gonna start at the top and go down each of these rows here. I need this closer actually here. That'll work. Okay. And if you notice that there's a ton of glue on any of these, you should try to scrape it off before you get it on your soldering iron and wreck it. So I'm gonna start here. Just gonna touch these two. Throw a little solder on there. Yeah, it looks like it connects pretty well. We'll see how the reliable the connections are, but it looks like it's taken the solder nicely, which is a good sign. Okay, go here. And of course, everything is surrounded by plastic, so we're always trying to work pretty quick so that we're not melting anything that is not supposed to be melted. Which that really makes sense. Like, use this intensely, insanely hot item to heat up the metal to a liquid, but don't heat up the plastic. Okay. Don't breathe the poison. Okay. Okay. Check those out. And you get something that focuses a little closer. I wonder if you can see this. It looks pretty nasty, but it's on there. Okay. I'll try to wrap this up here. I'm gonna need another piece of solder here. Okay. Okay. Ugh, that one's a little bit of a mess. We'll go back to that one. I want to make sure it sticks to the pin. So you kind of want to heat the pin up a little bit first before you touch down to the tape, because the tape will heat up real fast and the pin actually is a little thicker of material, so it needs to be touched for just a tiny bit longer. Okay, yep, and then just let it flow down to the tape a little bit. Should be good. Actually, if it's touching the tape pretty well, the pin is touching the tape pretty well, it seems like if you just heat the pin up, it will actually sort of flow naturally down to the tape. So that's nice. There's some glue. You don't want to get that on your soldering iron tip because that will make everything way harder for no reason. Yeah, just bonk it into the side of your case. That's a lot better. Yeah, no. Turn it 360 degrees and keep going. Let's see. Okay. Should make kind of a nice little mountain shape if it's done correctly. Meaning that it's actually fully bonded to the pin and the tape. sure we're actually touching some of the pin. Okay. Maybe a little on the other side of that one. There we go. Okay. All right, so that's our first. I think that's gonna do it for the first video here. We've got our columns done, and next time we are going to start in on the rows. Thank you for watching.